In today's video, let's solve a guesstimate together. Hi everyone, मेरा नाम सौमी है. I'm an IIT Delhi and ISB Hyderabad grad, and on this channel I share my corporate experiences. I also do some educational videos related to helping you ace your case interviews or general job interviews or MBA entries. So if that's something that you are interested in, please consider subscribing to the channel. So I've been doing this series of case frameworks on how to ace your consulting interviews on the channel, and बहुत सारे लोगों ने comment किया कि guesstimates के बारे में कुछ बताइए, मतलब how to approach guesstimates. And I do realize that guesstimates are much more common than a full-blown case, and guesstimates will be asked to you not only in a consulting interview, but it could be in a lot of other interviews as well, right? So शुरू करते हैं. Let's do a guesstimate together. This guesstimate that we are going to do in this video is a real one that I was asked in one of my ISB placement interviews. But before we do the guesstimate, let me tell you that guesstimates are all about breaking down a problem into smaller pieces so that each of the pieces are more easily calculatable, if that's a word. So it's not important for you to get to the right number of an estimate, but it's important for you to walk the interviewer through the approach that you are taking. So basically, जैसे ही तुम्हें question दिया जाता है, वैसे ही take some time to build a framework, and more than putting numbers to your approach, start talking him through what your approach is, and wherever you get stuck, he'll probably be able to help you in that case as well. And guesstimates is all about estimating, right? So ऐसा कई बार होगा जब तुम्हें कोई एक specific number नहीं पता होगा, जैसे कि I don't know, अहमदाबाद की population तुम्हें नहीं पता है. So it's okay to assume something. You tell the interviewer that I don't know the exact figure, but this is what I'm going to assume. And कुछ general numbers जो है वो थोड़ा सा पहले से प्रिपेयर करके जाना is also a good idea, such as इंडिया में रूरल पॉपुलेशन कितनी है, अर्बन पॉपुलेशन कितनी है, टीयर 1 टीयर 2 सिटीज़ में कितना परसेंटेज ऑफ लोग रहते हैं, ओवरऑल इंडिया का पॉपुलेशन कितना है, ओवरऑल इंडिया का एरिया कितना है. वो छोटी छोटी चीज़ें अगर हम पहले से मतलब थोड़ा पता करके जाएंगे, it becomes easier to put numbers. Okay, now let's start with the case. So this was a question that I was asked in one of my interviews, which is how many kites are sold during Makar Sankranti in the city of Ahmedabad? Now, how do you start it, right? तुम्हें पहले काफ़ी हाई लेवल से शुरू करना है, फिर उसको धीरे 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 करके नीचे तक डिटेल्स में ले जाना है. How I did it was, in my mind, the total number of kites that are going to be sold is going to be kites per person and then into multiplied by the number of people flying kites during Makar Sankranti. So we'll start with each of them one by one. Let's start with kites per person first, right? अब kites per person में firstly, let's assume that there are 2 days of flying a kite. मकर संक्रांति हो सकता है एक दिन पे होता हो, but I've just assumed 2 days. If you have a better idea, then feel free to pitch in over there, right? And let's say that एक काइट से काम तो चलेगा नहीं, because a lot of times you'll be flying a kite and it will get cut and then you'll have to start flying a new kite again. So let's say one person gets his kite cut every 2 hours. तो हर 2 घंटे में उसे अपना काइट चेंज करना पड़ता है. अभी जानना ज़रूरी है कि 2 दिन के अक्रॉस कितने घंटे है तुम्हारे पास. 24 hours in a day, right? Minus 8 hours of sleeping. Minus and another minus 8 hours of, say, doing other things like chilling, taking a bath, eating, working, etc. And then you are left with 8 hours per day of kite flying. If you have to change your kite every 2 hours, that is 4 kites each day, which means total of 8 kites. So one person basically is going to fly 8 kites. Now let me take a pause and tell you that there is no one way to solve a guesstimate. You could have absolutely taken a different approach altogether and still arrived at some number which is justifiable. But this is how I did it, so that's how I explained. Now let's move to the second part where we are estimating कितने लोग काइट फ्लाई करते हैं ड्यूरिंग मकर संक्रांति इन अहमदाबाद. अब मेरे हिसाब से इसके 2 अप्रोच हो सकते हैं, एंड आई डोंट रिमेंबर विच वन आई टुक ड्यूरिंग द एक्चुअल गेस्टिमेट, बट वन कुड बी अप्रोचिंग इट वाया एज ग्रुप, कि डिफरेंट एज ग्रुप में डिफरेंट नंबर ऑफ पीपल होंगे एंड उसका एक सर्टेन परसेंटेज ऑफ पीपल वुड बी फ्लाइंग काइट्स. द अदर अप्रोच could also be taking the approach of number of households, the number of households that are there in Ahmedabad, and then estimating what percentage of households will actually be flying kites and then going about it, right? So let's take the first one first. Age group से estimate करते हैं. First, let's assume that the total population of Ahmedabad is 8 million, which is approximately the case. I had Googled. I did not know the number. So if you don't know the number, ask the interviewer. It's absolutely fine. 8 million की population है. मान लेते हैं कि एवरेज एज एक आदमी का 80 साल है, 1 to 80 years तक लोग जीते हैं. एंड लेट्स अज्यूम एन इक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ एज, विच मे और मे नॉट बी द केस, बट यू कैन कैवियाट इट. तुम इंटरव्यू में बोल सकते हो वैसे तो इंडिया इज अ ग्रोइंग पॉपुलेशन कंट्री, सो द यंगर जनरेशन, द यंगर पॉपुलेशन इज गोइंग टू बी मच हायर. बट फॉर सिंप्लिसिटी ऑफ दिस केस आई एम गोइंग टू अज्यूम इक्वल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन अक्रॉस ईच एज ग्रुप. Up, each age group now needs to be broken down into smaller parts. So what you're going to say is, let's assume there are 3 key age groups. One is 10 to 20 years, because less than 10 years वाले बच्चे, let's assume that they don't fly kites, they are too young. So 10 to 20 years वाले kite fly कर रहे होंगे. Then maybe there's another age group with 20 to 40 years and they are also flying kites. And lastly 40 to 60 years. And again, let's assume that 60 years के above जितने भी लोग हैं, they are too old and they won't be flying kites. Right? Now, what is the reason you want to break down into different age groups? This is because different age groups will likely have different levels of enthusiasm for flying kites. So the number of kites that they will need per day is going to be different as well. Say for instance, 10 to 20 years वाले हर 2 घंटे में kite उड़ा रहे हैं, so they'll need like 4 a day or 8 in that entire period. And 20 to 40 years वाले will be a little more relax. Maybe they'll fight only 2 kites a day, and maybe the 40 to 60 year guys would be flying even lower number of kites, maybe 1 kite a day. So that's about the number of kites. Now we need to find out how many people are there in each of these age brackets. Remember, we had assumed the equal distribution of population by age group. So 10 to 20 years mein there are 10 years, and your formula is going to be 10 divided by 80, because 80 is your total age group, like 1 to 80 years तक average life expectancy है, multiplied by 8. 8 is your population of Ahmedabad. So that gives me 1 million population in 10 to 20 years. अब ये call out करना बहुत ज़रूरी है that not all of these 1 million people in this age group are going to fly kite. Maybe there's only a 50% chance of these people flying kites, right? For 10 to 20 years, it's going to be higher because these are young kids, they're enthusiastic. वही वाला percentage, maybe if you go to 20 to 40 years age group, then that 50% is going to reduce to say 30%. Only 30% of people in that second age group are going to fly kites. So अगर हम first age group को देखें 10 to 20 years, remember we had a 1 million population in this age group and we assumed 50% people will be flying kites in this age group. So that makes a total of 500,000 people who are actually going to be flying kites. And then if you remember, the number of kites for this age group we had assumed to be 4 per day or 8 in that entire period. So the number of kites bought by this specific age group is going to be 8 into 500k, and that's I think about 4 million. And similarly, you can calculate for each age group and come up with a number. अब तुम्हें दिखा होगा when I was solving this how important it is to walk the interviewer through the process and not just give him a number, because एक number का वो क्या करेगा? एक number मतलब there are so many different approaches to solve a problem. Different approaches are going to give you different numbers. So the end number doesn't matter. What matters is the approach. Okay, lastly, let's estimate the number of people using the number of households. Like I said, there are 2-3 different ways to calculate the same numbers. So the first part that we took was by age group, and now let's calculate by number of households. Again, let's start with the total population of Ahmedabad, which is 8 million. And let's assume that there are about 4 people in each household, which means 8 divided by 4 equal to 2 million households exist in Ahmedabad. Now, again, these number of households, you will somehow have to break it down into 2 or 3 chunks. Age group तो हमने different age groups बना दिए थे. But over here, for households, we can do it by different income levels. Say, for instance, the lowest income level has about 20% people. The middle income group is about 60% of the total population, and the highest is again 20%. इससे क्या होगा? You will be able to find the number of households in each income group, because in the lowest income category, if it's just 20%, so 20% into 2 million comes out to be about 400k. So 400k households in the lowest income group. अब each income group, again, not everyone is going to fly kites, right? Let's assume the number of households that are going to actually participate in kite flying are going to be different based on their income level. So जो lowest income group है उनके पास शायद पैसे ही नहीं है kites खरीदने के लिए. So let's say that only about 10% of this population actually buys kites and they're actually flying it. For the middle income group, let's assume 30% of the people are buying kites and flying it. And for the highest income group, because they have a lot of disposable income, let's assume 50% of those people are buying kites and flying it. Again, over here, number of kites के लिए you have to find the number of kites per household, because over here the base has been changed to household from number of people in each age group, right? So naturally जो lowest income group होगा वो लोग कम kites खरीदेंगे, जो highest income group होगा वो सबसे ज़्यादा kites खरीदेंगे. Let's assume the lowest income group buys about 2 kites, maybe the middle one buys about 5 kites, maybe the highest one buys about 10 kites during the entire Makar Sankranti situation. And just like that, you have all the numbers estimated. Now all you have to do is just multiply it for each household and find the final number. So for the lowest income group, we had 400k households, of which we said only 10% are going to fly kites, which means 40,000 households are going to fly kite. And we assume that number of kites for this income group is going to be only 2. So the total number of kites that this income group buys is 80,000. Similarly, you calculate for the medium income group and the high income group and total them up, you get the number of kites that are being sold during Makar Sankranti in Ahmedabad. I hope you got some ideas on how to approach guesstimates now. It's really not that difficult. I think हम लोग बहुत डर जाते हैं कि सही तरीका क्या है और गलत तरीका क्या है इसमें. But it's not about the सही तरीका और गलत तरीका, because बहुत सारे तरीके होते हैं guesstimate solve करने के. You just think what suits you most and you try to break it down as much as possible. That is where your thought process comes into picture. You try to give them some analytically सोच के, जैसे different income levels, how will that impact the different number of kites that you're going to buy, or how age groups are going to impact the number of kites that you buy. उस तरह के थोड़ा सा flavor दे दोगे तो it's good enough for a guesstimate. Hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please let me know in the comments. And if you want more of such solve guesstimates or solve cases with me, let me know in the comments as well. Only then I'm going to continue this series, okay? That's about it. If you haven't subscribed yet for whatever reason, please subscribe to the channel and इस वीडियो को like भी कर देना, क्योंकि उससे बहुत ज़्यादा help मिल जाती है to push this video out to more people, and I'm trying to grow my channel as well. That's it. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye.